Hello, hola, bonjour, welcome to this video. I'm going to be talking about this lens, the Canon 35mm f2 from Canon EF mount. Let's talk about it. My name is Luís Ganilho. I am a Portuguese photographer and videographer living in France and speaking to you in English. So yeah, I remember I paid 320 euros for this lens back in 2013. I was alongside a friend shooting a short film, and all we had was the 50mm 1.4 and the Canon T2i, like my first camera. And we really had some shots in mind that we needed to go wider, but we didn't have money to buy any wider lens, so this was the cheapest one that was wider than the 50 that we could afford. So if you want to buy this lens, you're going to have to buy it in the used market, and I imagine that you will find it very cheap. So yeah, this lens was launched in the market in the year of 1990, so it has 30 years old, and we're going to see how an old lens will perform. I'm going to show you, and spoiler alert, it's really sharp, it does really good. It has some flaws, I'm going to be talking about them, but if you are on a budget, this lens might surprise you. I'm going to show you the lens mounted on my 6D Mark II, but first actually I'm going to try to show you the lens a little closer, starting from the back. Here is the metal mount, so it's small and plasticky, but it's solid. This is a little flimsy. I never actually used this. Autofocus, manual focus switch. It does come with a scale, so that's how it looks like in my Canon 6D Mark II. When you look at an image taken with this lens and an image taken, for example, with the 24-105 f4L, there is just a very big difference in image quality. So this one actually is a lot sharper than the zoom, even if the zoom is an L lens. Let's take a look at some example photos taken with this lens and we'll talk about them. This first photo is from a shoot I did for a brand. I think it was 2017, and as you can see, the 35mm is great to shoot people within an environment, and it was perfectly capable to shoot a professional shoot, so there was no complaint from the client saying that it's not good enough, even if it's a cheap old lens, right? Not far from the location of the previous photo, I made this shot. It's in Belém, which is next to Lisbon, if you're curious. So I was trying to do some travel photography for a while, and I can tell you for sure that in terms of image quality, that this photo taken with this cheap 35mm has sufficient quality to be accepted in a stock library. So I actually made a few travel shots and I uploaded them to stock library, and they were just fine, they were accepted, and they are online. And I sold a few of them. Anyway, how about going on vacation with this lens? Well, I've done that a few times and I have to say that I'm very happy. It's not as versatile as a zoom lens, but it's very small, it's very light, and it delivers great images. People don't look at you as much when you are on the street with this lens, so I quite enjoyed using it in Paris. No longer in Paris, but still in France. I had recently bought my camera, my 6D Mark II, and I was excited to use it, so there was an opportunity to shoot for myself an event that was a demonstration of how they use dogs and pigs to search for truffles. I patiently waited that the pig came closer to me, and when it did, I took this shot and I'm very happy with it. A few miles away, in some other time, I was walking by the river and I saw what I thought it was something interesting, and the 35mm was a great lens for this first establishing shot of the person, the fisherman, within his environment. I'm happy with this shot. Some things that are worth mentioning is that this lens has a really old autofocus system. So many people know other lenses from Canon, like this one, the 85mm f1.8 USM. So USM because it has a USM autofocus motor, but this one is older, it's from 1990, so it has the previous autofocus motor. It's a very noisy, very noisy autofocus motor. It's not usable for video, in my opinion. This lens is not for video because of that noise. If you're just shooting and that doesn't bother you, then it's fine. But if you are one of those people who don't like a noisy lens, I do not advise this lens. I'm going to show you how noisy it is right now. The autofocus is primitive, it's noisy, it's slower from what you expect from a modern lens, but in terms of speed, it's very usable. Not for sports, but everyday use, it's usable. This lens has a 25 centimeters focusing distance, so it's not a macro, but it's really useful because it's almost a macro. When I shot a few weddings, I don't have a macro lens, so I used this one to shoot detail shots of the restaurant table, the decorations, the engagement rings. I'm not able to get as close one-to-one as a real macro lens, but it does allow me to get close enough to have a close-up shot, a detail shot. Some final details about this lens. It has 5 aperture blades. It has a 52mm filter size. It weighs 210 grams. That's right, yes. And it goes from f2 to f22. In summary, if you are shooting Canon DSLRs in the EF mount, and if you are on a very tight budget, this lens is a great option. If you can find one used. It's small, light, really sharp. It has a noisy autofocus, if that doesn't bother you, if you want to use this more for photography rather than video. It's really value for money, good value for money. Yep, it does have some vignetting, that's how you say it, vignetting, but that's easily corrected by Lightroom automatically, so it doesn't bother me. To finish this video, just letting you know that if you happen to be like me, and if you like to shoot film cameras, and if you happen to shoot Canon SLR film cameras from the 80s and from the 90s, this lens is great to have in your camera bag. I'm going to finish this video by showing you some shots I've taken lately with this on film. So enjoy. Thank you for watching. I hope this was useful for you, and I'll see you next time. Cheers.